Good morning. Hello and happy Tuesday to my fellow indie game clinicians. Just turning the mic up for you there. Sorry about that. I opened my music software earlier and the mic was feeding back and going, ah, because I had it routed through a bunch of effects in that project. So I went, ugh, and then I forgot to turn it back up again. Yeah, a little bit off schedule today. I have sort of provisionally scheduled in another round of jam games at this time and the same time tomorrow, but I hadn't put them in the official schedule because I wanted to see how far along we got with them at the end of each stream. You can look back through the last couple of CollabJam streams and your games will be timestamped if you haven't seen them yet and I've played them. You can kind of see which games were played in each stream so far. Because of that, the only games I haven't streamed are the ones which were download only, which were about 5 or 6. I played them on the Discord with some folks who were around that afternoon last week. There are a few good ones in there. They may get a brief mention when I do a roundup video in a week or so's time, but we'll get to that later. Morning, Robin. Morning, everyone else in the chat. Morning, anyone who's watching this over on Patreon. I have activated the multi-streaming to Patreon since Streamlabs kind of made that part of their integration. Although I've noticed that I haven't seen folks from Patreon show up in the stream chat, so I don't know how well that integrated. And yeah, let's just see at where we're at in terms of submissions without votes. I'm continuing to work through them in the way that I was, so I'm going from the bottom upwards. Just quickly dealing with a report on the community hub there, and yeah, so A Way Out was one of the ones that didn't run, so straight into harmonice. Are we going to be doing space puzzles again? We've had a few space puzzles so far. Magical star orbs create stellar music in this short atmospheric rhythm game. Complete 5 levels and enjoy a free place mode where you can create your own music. Okay. Robin, put me on mute. Put me on mute and then listen to the music. Oh, that's what I would do. You can watch the games so you don't have to play all of them. And then you can see if there's a game that you like and you can put me on mute and then have the music on. Embrace strategic multi-streaming. Okay, I'm liking the sort of collage-y aesthetic of this. This is a great way to make game art, by the way, whether you're an artist or not. But if you're like a programmer working alone, doing this kind of collage-y thing out of photos is a really good way to like get somewhere very, very quickly. I do this with my game UIs and then I draw over them when I want to do something very detailed. So I'll make a collage out of like photos I found online and things that are in the Canva image library, and then I'll draw over it, and it's a really good skill to pick up. Okay, I'll put that on there. Oh, lovely. I think we've got, let me just turn the audio up for you. I think we've got a reverse rhythm game here, actually. I think we're programming the music and then it does its thing. Yeah, I think you should always prioritize consuming new art slightly over consuming art criticism, I think. And then I can press space to turn it on and off. This is really lovely as a toy. Like when you start it and stop it, look at all those animations that make it feel like this kind of physical sort of space steampunk thing. lovely, that little rattle as it comes back round. So I can move these around and we get a different... That's... Bum, 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 bum. I'll play along to it. Let's get a synth up. Let's get dot piano open. I've got my MIDI controller plugged in. Is it going to work? Okay, I've worked out the key. I don't know enough music theory to know what key that's in, but I know enough to know which black notes are involved. It's whichever one's just got D sharp and A sharp in it. I love it when I can play along to someone's game. MIDI controllers down here, by the way. If I was fancy, I would have a separate camera that we could switch to that showed where the MIDI controller was, because that probably doesn't make any sense. So we've got tab up here, space. Space starts it and stops it. Enter puts them all back. And tab goes back to this map. So it looks like there's different sets of notes we can unlock. So that's the actual song that it wants us to make, which is kind of giving 1, 2, 3. I'm just trying to see if these numbers mean anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 dots on that side and 4 on that side, so maybe it's not that exact. It's just telling us the sequence rather than how far apart things need to be, maybe. So we go 5 point, 6 point, 3 point, 4 point, I think. And I might have put them in the wrong order. I can't remember which way it rotates. I need to reverse the order. The button even shows me which way they're going to play. They've done a lot of lovely little kind of... Five, 6, 3, 4... And then they just need to be... a bit further along, maybe? Ah, no, it's... There's so many... this is a really good piece of UX design. Even though this... I mean, it does have a goal, right? There's something we're trying to work out and work towards. But every little bit of information you need has some sort of clue in the environment. So when I pick these up and I'm moving them around, I don't know if you can see it. Maybe I should make sure my browser is full screened. I don't think I can get rid of this at the moment. You can see up here there's a little highlight to show which place in the play sequence the thing is going into, right? So this is my instrument, and this is what it's going to play, and I need to get it to line up with this. So I think if I put that there, there are 4 little dots before that. So that should be right now. Right, and then we've passed the level. So the level is a little bit just kind of like copy this thing down here. But it's just enough friction to get you to play around with the musical toy. And now it looks like it's getting a bit more difficult. So we're getting like a musical Zachtronics puzzle. So this one is asking me to put... Oh, and we've got 2 different rings. So we're going to get a polyrhythm, I guess, out of this. This one is locked into place. So that star there... And you can already see they've put these 3 little things around like claws that show the thing is held in. They're like the claws you get on a ring to hold a stone in place. All of these things are examples of what you'd call affordances in like visual design or product design. They let you know how the thing works before you even interact with it. Well, they're signifiers of affordances. They're signifiers that tell you the affordance of the thing. It's really cool. And this one needs to be exactly in the middle, I think, on the top. So the top bar is this sort of more kind of white gold thing. And that's got, I'm going to call it a caltrop, that note. And then we'll put another caltrop a little bit further along. Ah, I see. It's in the opposite way that I thought it would be. So that's what the outside ring will sound like. I think this key is D minor. I don't know. I can work out what key I'm playing with on guitar, but I can't on the keyboard. Okay, and now we need to sort out the internal ring. So we've got another caltrop. And I'm looking at the top, the little flickers on the top to show me where in the sequence it should go. Now, this wouldn't be a compelling game, I don't think, if it was just a puzzle sequence and not something that generated music. But I think it's a really good way of using a very light puzzle to force people to experience the musical toy. I think the way that the game and the music toy parts of this, or the way the puzzle and the music toy parts of this game fit together is really, really pleasing, because you're going to get it eventually anyway, because this is very solvable through trial and error, because you're just putting the symbol in the right place and then looking for it to light up here to match this. But you can let it run a few times as you're doing it, and you can just listen to it, and it's the same notes, it's the same key on each level from what I can tell, which might give it a lack of variety, but it also makes it more chilled out. If you ever listen to one of those like relaxation albums that they use for like massage parlors or whatever, it's the same key all the way through. They'll make it in like A minor, and like it'll be an hour of music in that key, because keeping music in the same key stops people's like attention refreshing, right? So it's bad practice for regular video game music or anything where you want people to be excited or engaged. So for example, if you're in a band and you play a live set or you put together an album, there's the concept of sequencing, like what order do we put the music in? And one of the quote unquote rules of sequencing in music is you don't put songs in the same key next to each other unless you want them to merge together. Because when you change key, when you change tempo, when you change anything like that makes one song feel different to the next, it kind of refreshes people's attention span. And that's why when you want to refresh people's attention span, you change tempo, you change key, you change all of these things. If you want something to be relaxing and chilled, you can actually keep it in the same key. And more ambient soundtracks tend to do that. If you listen all the way through, you could probably take one track and another track, play them over each other, and they would just merge into one thing because they're in the same key. Not always the case, but often I think you'll find that is how that works. My top row is gone. What's happened? That's because I put things in the wrong... Did I put things in the wrong lane? Huh. What's going on then? Because it looks like the... So that caltrop's in the right place. That caltrop needs to be... I think I've found a bug, unfortunately. I'm not quite sure what is happening with the way that things correspond to the rows they're supposed to be in. So I'm going to just take some stuff off. That's that one. We've got caltrop in the middle. So the thing that's confused... Oh yeah, no, that is that lane. Okay, so... And then these should be all bunched together, really. So... This should be on the same side as the 4-pointer. So it should be there. And then the 6... Oh, maybe it's supposed to go like that. But they're showing up in the same line now, so something's wrong here. Okay. I think it works differently from how I thought, which is cool, because it means it's kind of given us an extra thing to work out. But I'm slightly confused. I think I have a rough idea what's happening, but I'm not sure. I think it's because this row is playing the notes in between this row, so they all actually... not necessarily on the visual line that they are in the music or something. So the puzzle is actually getting more puzzly than I thought it would. So that 5-pointer there has got to be that one, I think, because we can't move it. Oh no, hang on, that 5-pointer is that one, so it's the end one on that sequence. I'm going to need to take everything off again. Okay, so top line, 4-pointer, caltrop halfway round, caltrop there, and then that gives us that's the 4 playing, that's the 5 playing, 4 there, 5, that's that one. One thing I would say is these little particle effects that are stars coming out, they make it quite confusing to read the interface. That's I think all of the other stuff I'm experiencing is just a cool part of the puzzle, but when these little stars come out, because we've got 5-point stars as one of our symbols, it makes it a little bit confusing. So if I were going to take this and make it into a larger kind of game or musical toy, which I feel like it already has the potential for you to do that, it looks great, it's really nice to interact with. But one very, very small VFX change I would make is when those stars pop out, make them like what do you call them, lens flares or little orbs of light, just so that they're very clearly differentiated from the more geometric stars that we're using as symbols. Otherwise it's causing me a little bit of brain noise that is maybe unhelpful. Okay, so the 5-point star is actually at the end of this sequence, so that means that the other symbols need to go before it, I think, like that. I think I overcomplicated. No, they're after it now, so other way around, like that. It looks like this caltrop is after the... Oh, it's hard to tell. I don't think I'm going to get it. I don't know how to solve this one. I like this. Might be too hard. But it's cool. That definitely feels like it could be. It's already like a lot of the polish on that is already at professional quality. I think you would need to do some stuff to make it a little bit easier for people to engage with. But also that might just be because it's a jam. So we have like 6 levels and they ramp up in difficulty way faster. You often find this in like puzzle games in jams. We get to the like hard level really quick. And that's not necessarily representative of how you would balance the difficulty if those 6 levels were actually 60 levels, right? Yeah, that one's scoring incredibly high for me for like the visual style, how it feels to interact with. And I think I talked a little bit yesterday about this. If your game is difficult in some way, either because it's got like a difficult skill challenge or it's like a puzzle that is hard for people to get their head around, wherever the difficulty comes from in your game, if it has more of that toy-like quality where it's fun to just interact with the stuff in the interface or fun to move the character around, people are going to be more forgiving and they're going to spend more time being willing to work it out. Whereas if it's like a grey box prototype or a wireframe that doesn't have any polish or any pizzazz, and it's also very difficult for players to understand what they're trying to do, they're not going to like give you the benefit of the doubt and try to work it out, right? That's kind of the difference there. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty impressed by that one. I think it's very hard to make musical games that don't just end up being rhythm games where you're told to like follow instructions, because that to me is what rhythm games usually are. It's basically the screen saying, do this now. And for a musician, they're often quite frustrating because you're not producing the music. The music is there as something for you to obey. Like, I like dancing, for example. So I like dance mat games because you're actually physically dancing. But rhythm games where you're pressing buttons to the music are often torture to me. And it's often because the people who program this, and Beat Saber had a very bad culture of this, but the people that make the levels for rhythm games often map the buttons that you're meant to press onto the melody rather than the rhythm. So loads of what I consider to be bad Beat Saber levels are like you are drumming along to the singer, or you're drumming along to like some guitar or synth riff, which to me is not the rhythm of the song. It's the melody of the song, and that's like not actually what I'm listening to if I'm pretending to play drums or if I'm dancing, for example. This one is called fpwb. What's the proper name? That's literally what it's called. A wizard who is trying to get through the portal at the end of the challenge as fast as possible. Well, we've already missed that. Okay, so we've got a start line here. This might not be very congruent with a fantasy setting, but it makes it very, very clear what's happening here. So, look, I'm trying to get somewhere, and the timer is going to start when I go past that line. Okay, we can't... that's a locked door, as indicated by the lock on the door. No, it's goobers. Evil goobers. Yeah, I've still never got around to Crypt of the Necrodancer. I think I might like it more because there's a bit more to do and the rhythm is just like part of the game feel rather than... The thing about rhythm games for me is the same thing as parrying in sort of Souls-likes. If it's the only option, it's like you must do this thing exactly perfect now and there's no other thing you can choose to do. That's kind of what trad rhythm games are like. And that's fine if I'm like actually getting to physically move around and dance on a map, but doing it with a controller is not an interesting use of video games to me. We're just going to turn that audio down slightly on the stream. There we go. Yeah, so one thing I would do with this visually, like obviously this is quite a kind of lo-fi game, and I'm fine with the kind of Wolfenstein type art we're doing here. But if you want to make this type of 3D and make it legible, every time I would put like a different texture or just a slightly different tint of the same texture every time it goes around a wall. You know, I often see this with like low poly 3D first person games where the surface you land on is the same texture as the side of the wall on a platform, and you need to alternate them so that players can see the angles between things. Right, let's have a real try at this now. So all we're doing, we've got click to shoot, we've got click to shoot, space to jump. Not sure whether jumping is going to actually come in handy anywhere here. And then we've got a maze, which is going to basically be like a memory game. I think maybe we're going to have to find the key in one of these chests. Oh yeah, there we go. So from a general game design point of view, not a massive fan of mazes, particularly in first person, because they just become a case of like try everything and then memorize it, and that's a skill that I suck at generally, particularly if I'm talking to you guys. But it does put the skill mainly on the memory rather than anything else you're doing in the game. And I think memory can be an interesting component of the skills that a game is testing, but when it's the main thing, it's like, eh. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that kind of art experiment where someone remakes Pac-Man in a bunch of different viewpoints, and it sort of shows you what Pac-Man is like in first person and how it sort of fundamentally changes it as a game because of what the player is doing in their head. It turns it into a horror game, really, because you're just experiencing disempowerment, whereas when you're looking at a maze from the outside, you can navigate the maze without actually moving the character through it, right? So you can pre-navigate and then move your character based on what you're seeing from above. That doesn't mean you can't make a first-person maze game, but it does mean a first-person maze game ends up being very much about memory more than anything else. I love these slightly psychedelic library sections. They're very nice. Ryan said, it's hard to do memory when you're streaming because your attention is soaked up with narrating your experience and thoughts. Yeah, so if I was playing this without streaming, the part of my brain that is dedicated to narrating would be sort of having to make up a mnemonic story to remember the layout. So, you know, you kind of, if you're playing this seriously, you would be sort of maybe in your head or under your breath saying, okay, that's there, that's left of that, da-da-da-da. And, like, obviously people have different ways they think through these things, but it's basically, yeah, it's like the same part of my brain is already active doing something else, so it's not available to make up the story that would help me remember my way through the maze. Although, it seems to be, it's not like, there's not a super tight time limit. I seem to be okay to just take my time. I kind of like the aesthetic of this. I like this Wolfenstein-y type thing. I'm generally quite down for people making games with this visual vibe. It is a little bit, maybe if the mouse feels a little bit over-responsive in some ways. But yeah, having a sort of maze-based memory thing as the core means it's not like super compelling for me. It's not the sort of thing that makes me want to go, oh yeah, I really want to get good at this game. I want to play it a load and get good at it, you know? Is that as... Oh. I just noticed that texture thing in the middle and I thought maybe there were secret doors, but it doesn't look like it. Okay, that's taking us back out of here. Maybe are we supposed to ever go back through a door we've unlocked? It's hard to tell. Robin, I don't know if you were there in the Discord when we were discussing like a non-Euclidean horror friend slop game. You know, like a friend slop game where you're running I won't tell people the theme because that's like giving away the whole concept, but we had a theme for another kind of friend slop game, and then one of the ideas I was talking about was making it kind of non-Euclidean horror where basically if someone runs away from the group too far and they go around a corner, a wall will appear behind them, and when the other characters get there, they won't be able to get to where the first player went. But it can only happen when no one is looking at that wall, right? So you have obstacles that spawn in, but they can only spawn in when it's not in anyone's viewport. And you could make some really cool scenarios like that, especially if you had like location-based microphones where you can like hear people muffled shouting through the wall, but they've kind of gone, it feels like they've gone into another dimension, like the upside down, because, you know, this barrier appeared. And you just make them look like normal walls in the building. You don't like put like something scary or, you know, it's not like a magical barrier. It's literally just like it was always that way. So you're chasing your friend, you turn the corner, or you go to turn the corner's not there anymore, and they're like in some other corridor that's disconnected from where you are. I think you could do quite a lot with that. Maybe, you know, I don't really play that genre of games, but I feel like maybe someone has done that sort of thing already. FPWB, I don't know, something wizard something. It was reasonably self-explanatory. I'm not sure if I'd play a longer version of that just because it's so memory maze based, but I like the way that looks. Yeah, that's pretty decent. I feel like you've got some chops there on the technical level, and I'm quite happy to see games that look like that artistically. I'd rather have, you know, deliberately retro lo-fi games generally than stuff that tries to be really high fidelity and ends up being jank. That's a personal preference, but I also do think it is generally the preference of the kind of people that play the most indie games. Yeah, Robin, that's the secret blank theme. Yeah. I'd be totally down for working on that. If anyone wants to make the secret blank theme non-Euclidean friend slop game, hit us up on the Discord. We need 3D level design. We need someone who can do the networking. I'm happy to make loads of 80s, 90s VHS synth backrooms music and help with the game design and the sound. I think we could make something pretty good. Right, this is asking me to use a controller, or that I can use the keyboard as well. We're doing WASD and we're doing a clicky. Ah, that feels quite nice. Okay, we're doing pool in a house, by the looks of things. I think I'm trying to get something into that. Oh, that's like a virtual controller thing that I can use, I guess. This is cute. This reminds me of Golfaria from UFO 50, which is like a RPG, golf RPG. Lovely sound design. I don't know if you can, let me just check that the audio is up high enough. Sorry if the audio is occasionally too high or too low on any of these games. I have to change the stream levels for each one. I don't have a controller for that beyond clicking out of my screen. This is really cute. The actual kind of pool sounds of the balls clacking together is just feels really, really good. Okay, so that was where we started. This is where we're going next. There's these trees here. I think I'm supposed to hit these other objects. Oh no, I'm not. They've got red around them. Okay, so I think maybe this is almost like my life bar. So I need to get through the level and get to the elevator, and I'm supposed to not smash the things that have red around them. And I guess these green boxes are fair game because they've got. Yep. Okay. Cool. So I need to get the pink ball specifically into that pink thing to open the next door. This is really neat. This is a good example of like a game that has a very this has a very simple interaction, But because you've created lots of rules around how you should and shouldn't use that, then the skill has meaning, right? Because just getting that into that pink hole is kind of a little bit of a challenge, but doing it in a way that avoids hitting any of these things you're not supposed to hit is much more of a challenge. And that's not to say that I think things are just inherently better if they're difficult, right? But it shows that the game has more potential depth and you could get more out of it if you were to pursue this as a bigger game. If you imagine like the simplest game just being like press spacebar to win, and then you gradually make that more complex by saying press spacebar to win, but you must also do this and you must not do this. The more kind of complex that situation gets, the more it starts to feel like a game and the less it feels just like a toy or a single kind of puzzle, like a thing with one solution. This is really challenging already on level 2 though. So maybe I need to tic-tac the blue into the pink to get this right. I think I need to not try and be a perfectionist about this, because I think the version of this game where you do it without breaking anything is for like advanced people that have already got through the levels, because I'm trying to complete the level for the first time and not break anything, and that's already way too difficult, so... I think if you were going to make this into a bigger game as well, you need to be wary of how that might be like disheartening for people. So you might have to make like an easy version of the level that doesn't have all of the red things you're trying not to hit first. Otherwise, people are going to kind of feel like they're failing, even though actually they're just kind of succeeding at the base level that the game needs them to progress. Oh, these, I didn't notice these green balls. Here we go. I quite like this mix of like an abstract physicsy billiards thing with a real environment as well. It's a little bit visually noisy. I think you could probably do a little bit more with thinking about like how much color things should have in terms of like how much they should stand out. But I do like the general kind of conceit of taking an abstract ball game and putting it in another environment. I like Peglin. Recently got into Ball X Pit. I like that kind of thing because it means you get to play this kind of pinball or pool or whatever it is you're playing, which we already know is kind of a satisfying activity that people like doing because we've been doing it for hundreds of years. Well, not pinball, but, you know, whacking balls at things. And you also get the satisfaction of seeing like a cute little world. But that's the great thing about video games, is you can take those two modes of play that wouldn't go together in any other way. I mean, I guess that's what pinball tables were doing from the start, right? They had some sort of fantasy in them. With games, you can kind of take that even further, and you can go, okay, what if we take the principles of designing a pinball table and making it like, you know, Indiana Jones pinball, where the pinballs are the rolling boulders or whatever we're doing. You know, we can take that and we can apply that to pool, we can apply it to pachinko, we can apply it to any of these machines with balls and pegs in, and we can put it in an office, we can put it in a castle, we can put it in a spaceship. We can do all of these things. I think there is a Pegs and Pins Steamfest coming up soon, so I'm going to be quite interested to see what shows up in that, and if we have any games that have been on the channel before showing up in that as well. I've played a few good ones of those in the last year or so. This is just way too hard for an early level, I think. It's good as proof of concept, though. There we go. And out we go. Oof. It's easy when you use WASD. It just feels so natural to be using the... Oh, okay, you can actually just move how you want with WASD. Right, so you're clicking to attack to fire, but you can walk around in the meantime. Okay, got it. What I was doing is I was trying to shoot between every movement, because that's what the pull thing kind of suggests. But once you know that you can just do what you want in between shots, then it changes the game. So you can walk around and take the shot from wherever you want. Which kind of makes sense anyway, because that's what you do in pool. Ah. Yeah, I was making the game more difficult for myself by taking every shot where my ball already was. I guess that's another thing of like the affordance of the sport you base your video game on is gonna make people think it works a certain way. But now that I know that, we're fine, you know? So I don't think that's not a thing that would be a problem in a video game, because you would be able to explain things a little bit better and you would be able to, in like a full game. You know, I think the tutorial screen you made for this, that was kind of a level that you stepped through door by door, that was pretty good, actually. That's kind of like the way I would expect this to be structured in a full game. But yeah, you just get people to do the skills a few more times. I think the problem was I was seeing the WASD as like a separate movement thing, rather than part of what you use with the mouse. Oof. I like the little voices that they have as well. The idea of having the furniture to avoid is good, because it makes it so there's some sort of limitation which isn't based on number of shots or time, because I think either of those things would be quite annoying. If this was just like counting how many shots you take and you're just gradually getting worse and worse. It's like when I do a soccer ban and it tells me how many moves I've made as I'm playing. Like, I don't want that. I'm happy for you to tell me when I've finished the level, but I don't want to see that count of how many shots or moves I've taken in that kind of game as I'm playing. It's just too frustrating. Come on. Right, little gentle round the corner now. You can take the shots while it's still moving as well. And I need to get the blue one round there. Right, I think these are not active because I haven't activated them with the blue thing here. So there's a lot of kind of good sort of visual language here as well. So one of the things you'll notice is there are certain things they lock into, and then you can't move them anymore and they're sort of used up. But these circular ones are the ones that are like one taps. So that I used the blue to open this door by putting it on there, but that didn't lock the blue into place, right? I think that's the sort of thing where if you were like going to totally like do a whole pass on the visuals of this, I would make that almost disappear after that point, or like get locked over by something so that it's no longer, because it's no longer really relevant to anything else we need to look at in the level. There we go. Okay, so... Oh, these are spinning now. What does that mean? Does that mean it's going to knock them off? Oh, hang on. The green one is already in the right place, so let's do the green one first. Oh no, that's just what they look like before you hit them, I think. I found your game's degenerate strategy, which is just doing this until it gets over the other side. These balls look lovely as well. I don't know how many... Is there some actual real 3D going on with these? I mean, you must have had to render lots of sprites out. But do you have like a... Do you have a sort of an array of what the sprite references are, and then depending on the rotation of the ball, you kind of cycle through the array in a different direction? Is that how the sprites are working? Kind of intrigued how you get that 3D effect with what look like 2D sprites with just lots of frames. Every day I come to work and I look at these things hanging on the wall. Things of cotton, nylon, silk, linen. They dangle on hooks. No one around me knows what they are, or what they're for. This, I know, 'tis a sofa, I can sit my round posterior on it. This a table, we place things on it. But these things, what are they? Perhaps if I was a different shaped creature I could put these things on my body, but I am a perfect sphere that rolls around. Why do we make these things? Why do we hang them on their hooks? I do not understand this world. Oh, these are these speed ups. So is this level just to teach us that speed up mechanic? Because if I go here now, is that going to open? Oh. Ah, we're getting them over there. Didn't notice these down here. Yeah, I think occasionally these get a little bit lost in some of the floor textures, I would say. Because you're, I think part of the problem is you're trying to make everything kind of pastel and cute. Pastel, sorry. That's how British people say pastel, by the way. If you didn't know that, that's the thing. We say pastel, like it's an LE, rather than pastel. But you sort of made this all pastel, and you're kind of... Your ball colors, which are part of your game interface, are in the same sort of... Like, this pink is not, but these other ones are quite light. The pink is kind of closer to being a sort of magenta. But because your background is all in that same sort of value range, it makes it hard to see in places. And I like the white outlines on the balls, but if the background was a little bit darker, it would all be easier to see. And I know that's difficult because you want to keep it this kind of soft candy coloured type thing. But I think if you go and look at your Kirby's and your games like that and see how they handle it. It feels very funny to like knock your ball and then start walking when it's still sort of like racing forward. That feels quite amusing. Right, what are we doing here? So we're gonna just ping at that. I like the way that I think one of the things that this game is doing very well as a jam entry is it's showcasing all these different ways that the mechanics that you've set up could create these different types of levels, right? So even if you've only made 6 levels, they're very different. There are some that are just like a puzzle about moving around a space and opening doors. There's others like this that are much more kind of billiards or lawn bowls, knock all the things out of the way quickly and then see where they land. And that's really good as a proof of concept because it's just showing you all the different things you could do with this game system that you've built. And I really feel like that's, you know, if you're using game jams as a way to get a proof of concept for a bigger game, which I think generally speaking is a good idea, you know, if you're past that initial kind of I'm just learning to use the technology and learning to do some art type stuff, and you're at the point of like, no, I'm doing game jams because I want to commercially release games and I want to test my ideas out quickly, then this is kind of what you should be aiming for, you know? A couple of levels that are proof of concept, not of the whole game, but like all the different types of like direction you could take that game idea in. And you've even done it with the level design here, because this is on a lawn in a sort of geometric shape. So this suggests a lawn sport. This suggests bowls or something like that. Petanque or whatever. And then the other ones are in an office and they've got doors, and that starts to sort of suggest a particular type of puzzle. So within the kind of framework you've got of this kind of psychedelic world where these balls walk around and have a little life in this world, because you've made it a domestic setting, you've also got this kind of thing that comes out of that, of like, it can be a lawn sport where we need to knock all the balls together and get them in the right place, or it can be a puzzle about opening and closing doors. It's really, really neat. I really like this. And now we're gonna vandalize all these cars. That's very funny. Yeah, I mean, you get so much speed off of that. It's better to hit the ball at that, regardless of where you are on the map. Really, it'd be nice to have a few of these in different places so we could experiment instead of just having to hit it in the same place every time. I love the disparity of still having the very cute chiptune on as we're doing this. That's very funny to me. That's it. I think we've done it. Yep, we've completed them all. Magical Girl Ball. Very fun. It was Nightbat and Raw Justine. Intuitive and self-explanatory. I'm gonna, yeah, reasonably good. I missed a instruction in the beginning, but that definitely one. That's one that definitely feels like it has legs as a kind of longer game. Yeah, I think about it's hard to do that kind of color palette and also not lose things on the background, you know? Just looking at Kirby. How do they do it in Kirby? I mean, very, very thick outlines on here, but also differences in like saturation level between the foreground and the background. That's like the tug of war in art direction for games. It's like, how do we make things visually clear and make it obvious what things in the game do? And how do we make it match the aesthetic we're trying to do? And there will always be a back and forth between those things. And that's why, you know, the art is iterative in games. It's refactored in the same way that code is refactored. You know, you have to go over it multiple times and tweak things. It's just the nature of the nature of the beast. Spellwrite, the last rites. This is going to be writing spells, I guess. One second while I get that one ready. There we go. Look at that creepy hand. Okay, so we're going to be drawing a little circle. Making a little fire. Drawing a V. Okay, that's cool. Okay. So we're targeting him, right? And then I can do a spell. Oh. Ah, that's showing me where it is on here. This is great. All of the little... the way that this is doing this without telling me anything verbally is very, very impressive. So we're going to tap him. It's showing him on the map. I'm going to put a wall down here. Yeah, have it. And then we'll do a... Oh no, that's still a wall, isn't it? That's very, very clever. And clever in a way that produces fun, which is not always the case, right? It's very easy to get bogged down with, like, trying to be clever to impress people versus, like, trying to be clever to create, like, a novel little thing for people to do is a difficult trade-off. Right, we do a zappy right there. This is too hard too quickly, I think. You know, I understood the game mechanics pretty fast, but this is already too fast for me. I like that zap is kind of a you can do the zap very quickly. You've thought about the kind of the physical UX about which of these takes longer to do with the mouse, you know? I've played sigil drawing games before and sort of not been super impressed by them. This is quite good. This is probably the best version of this I've seen. Right, we've just upgraded our vault, so we can do a little one like that, or we can do a big zigzag like that. See, the first one, they have a different sound effect. The bigger one does more damage. I think I would have made the visual effect for the bigger one like 3 or 4 times bigger, even if you were just triggering the same thing multiple times. Because the effect on the board between that... oh, that was weird. The effect on the board between that zap and that zap is just not pronounced enough. I can hear the difference, but I think we should have stacked the VFX more times or done a gentle flash with it to make it feel more powerful or something. Okay. We've got an opposing wizard now. Excuse me, you. Oh, he's shielding that guy. So now we've got a bit of a sequence puzzle where it's like, okay, we've got to kill that guy first. He just ran away. Stop. You there. How about I zap you on the old noggin? Yeah, I think I saw you guys working on this or posting a screenshot of it somewhere, and I remember wondering how this, you know, how working out where things on the grid were part would work, and the fact you can just sort of click them and track them like that, it just makes so much sense, and it also forces you to. It's the trade-off of like having to move your cursor up there temporarily to do it as well, which is. And then you get moments like that where you haven't tracked them and you're just sort of like wildfiring and guessing how it relates to the grid. It's really cool. After a while you get a bit more confident and you can just start doing your kind of battleship pinging without doing any tagging. Ah! I have been defeated with this sword. Oh no, my belly. I've been. I leave all my worldly possessions to this man here. He was kind to me. When all of the others wanted to kill me, he followed them into battle. He said, no, don't do it. Don't kill the witch. Brave Lucian, thank you for trying to help, but alas, 'tis all in vain. I go now to the spirit realm. Well, we have to select the enemies because someone said, why do we have to select the enemies? Because if they all displayed on paper, there would be no point, would there? Because we were just playing the entire game down here. And the game lives in the disparity between us having to target on the paper and see the enemies up there, right? So if they just all automatically were tracked, then we wouldn't have any reason to move the cursor from down here. So it's creating deliberate UX friction so that we have to go between these two screens. And that's what makes it interesting. Otherwise, it would just be a game of clicking on things on a grid, and there would be no point in this up here. It's the ambiguity between the two things is the thing that creates the game. You need to think about the game as being the thing that's happening in the player's head rather than the thing that's happening just with the buttons and the interface on the screen. And then you can sort of just blast without tracking them sometimes. But yeah, that's the trade-off, right? You're giving players trade-offs. It's like, do I track them so I can target them better, or do I just go for it because I don't have time to track them? Yeah, that would be great. You pick up something there and then you tap them and it targets them. I think just making the targeting feel a little bit more like a little magical cantrip. You know, like you do a little point and it goes beep. Even if the hand just goes beep and like bops them, and there's like a little bit more of like a magical sense of you're tagging them. Because the way that magic works in a lot of like tabletop role-playing games is you have the idea of cantrips, which is like little spells that don't require you to do anything. You can just like, They're your like level 0 spells, and you treat the tagging as one of those, right? Even though it's not really a spell in the context of how this game works, it's a kind of UI feature, but you just have the make it feel a little bit more like because at the moment it feels like a kind of sci-fi-ish computery thing, and I think if you just sort of beeped them and it did like a kind of I think the equivalent in D&D is something like fairy fire, where you're like illuminating an enemy so they're easy to hit, and I made it sort of like we boop them, they get like a purple glow, and it feels a little bit more like a spell that the character did. Okay, let's try again. I want to upgrade these other spells and see what they do. That's all right, Felix. I mean, this is like a big barrier that people often have to get over to make good games. Is like, there's the classic Sid Meier quote that a game is a series of interesting decisions, and it sounds like a bit of a cheesy thing when you first hear it, but the kind of situation we just described where they're all tracked on here, it wouldn't really be a game. I mean, it would be a game, but it would mainly be just an activity of clicking on dots on a map. And the trade-off of like the player having to look up there, think about things, make a decision about what to do with their mouse, all of that is what the game is, right? And it's very easy when you're first making games to get stuck in the idea that whatever you're making is a game because you're making it in a game engine, and like the game is really the thing that happens when the player is interacting with your game. And the more of those little decisions and judgments you can put in, the more likely it is to actually being an engaging game. But because we're all trained by the industry to think of games as being a set of features, we tend to think, well, in my game, you've got all of these things you can do. You press this to do this, and you've got a jump button and all this, so it must be a game. And it's like, well, the game is the kind of the thing that comes out of all of those when you put them together. And you can have a game with loads of things to do, but they're not very interesting because they don't require the player to think in any particular way. So difficult. Right, I'm gonna lock in for the next one and try and actually get past this because I want to see the other spells. Locking in now. You can probably tell I don't play many games that involve mouse dexterity. I'm not very good at this. But the iPad version of this game, Oh boy. You know, this would be like Fruit Ninja, but make it mid-core. Oh. Or make it work with the tablet, like let people play this on their Cintiq or whatever. So I saw there was like a debug. There's a circle that makes hit right on the arrow keys. Okay. Put the dev skip on. Why not? We've got a spiral and whatever that is. Yeah, that's good. That's like the level of jump up I wanted that I wanted from the upgrade of the electricity, you know? I don't think the big circle works. I guess the idea, I mean, I haven't been doing a big circle. So I guess the idea is that if you do a bigger version of the spell, it's weaker. And that would need, if you did do that trade-off, you would need to make it visually clear. So if I do a little version of the fire spell, it needs to like be more intense, and if I do a big version of the fire spell, it should be more spread out, right? And that actually pushes them together. That's neat. And then I can... Right now we've got like the mechanics sort of squishing together to create possibilities for the player to like feel smart by doing these things in tandem. I mean, the other thing you could do, if this was a bigger game, you know, to respond to that idea of, like, how do you stop people just casting the biggest version of the spell all the time? One of the benefits of using fantasy as a theme is you have very clear elemental kind of synergy stuff that you can do with, like, magical creatures and things. And that's why sometimes, if you want to make a game that has all of those kind of elemental properties, it's a lot easier to do it with fantasy than with sci-fi, because you can have something like a fire elemental where it's very clearly a creature that is completely made out of fire that fire damage will do nothing to, right? Whereas if you're doing the same thing in a modern or in a sci-fi setting, it's like, how do we make it absolutely clear that this creature will not take any damage from fire or water, or might even be healed by it, right? And you have that baked into fantasy with things like elementals and golems and stuff like that in a way that you just don't with other themes. That's great. Gonna quickly vote on that on my other screen and then get the next game open, which is Oak. Going a bit slower today, but there's some good games that have just hooked me in for longer, so that's just part of what's going on. But yeah, I think one of the things about that kind of question, when you say like, why wouldn't the player just do this? If your game is robust enough, the way you should be designing the content is to have those questions and say, why wouldn't the player just do this? And then counter them with the content, right? So if you look at how encounters are designed in something like Slay the Spire, once you get past the first few levels that are there to kind of teach you how to play the game, every kind of special ability that a boss or a character has is there to answer that question of like, well, what if the player just does this slightly broken approach? And you have all of these bosses that are like, well, if you've built into that slightly broken approach, this boss is going to mess you up, right? What's going on here? Oh, it's just a sliding start menu. We're going to be left and righting. We're going to be space barring. We're going to be not jumping on some hedgehogs. We can jump on the hedgehogs and knock them out. That's not the most obvious creature I'd use for something you can jump on. X here. And then, I see. Okay, that's cool. So we need to make something we can climb up. Huh. Will that do? Can I? Oh, it's a little bit too. Maybe that, then that, then that. I think that will do it. That's really neat. I like that. So when you see those little... Oh. There's those little kind of square bordered bits that look like a little empty frame made out of plants. And oh, and those are the bits that I go in to program the next set of tiles. So this is more getting things out of the way so that we're not blocked to go down the next bit, I think this one is. So it's a little bit more like a, you know, traffic, slidey vehicle traffic puzzle, one of those. And again, this is doing what I said about the game with the super magical girl ball or whatever it's called. It showed us two versions of the puzzle, and they both do different things. One of them is move the pieces around to create a way to get up, and this one is move the pieces around to create a way through because they're currently blocking you. So we're already showing different things you can do with the game mechanic very quickly, and that means that this is, you know, showing us that we've got proof of concept for something that could go in a couple of different directions in terms of variations on that little puzzle. It's good. Here we've got, so we're going back to the first type of puzzle, which is how do you get across using these pieces. And this one looks relatively simple. Do that. Oh no, I need a low one at the start, or I'm not going to be able to get onto it in the first place. So we do something like that, and then that. Basically, I don't think we can jump 3 blocks at once. So it's forcing me to learn the in level design they call metrics, the like distances that the player can move and all of that kind of stuff, how the level design works, because I need to know how high I can kind of jump and everything in order to do the puzzle. And I think 3 is slightly too high. That might be okay. Let's try that. But I'm gonna lose quite a lot of progress now if oh yeah, and I can't get onto the last one, so we go back again. So I think what we actually need to do is this time we do something like that. We jump on there, up there, up there, up there. It's great. Really good. I should have been able to do that right the first time, but it's quite neat because you have to like jump onto the grid to actually try the grid. And that means if you try and brute force it by just moving it around every time, you're increasing the amount of times you go and try it out. And that means you're increasing the amount of times that you're going to fall down and lose progress. Right? So it's kind of encouraging you to, it's encouraging you not to do that. So now I have lost the progress and I need to redo those two. Right? So the way that the platformer fits together with the puzzle here is really kind of, feels quite intriguing because of that. I think we should be able to do that way. And I did that different the second time, which shows there's some kind of variability in how you can approach these things as well, which is also good. I think we did it like this last time. Oh. It feels a little bit harsh, but at this stage I don't care about how difficult it is. I just care about whether it seems like a proof of concept for an interesting idea. Because if you were going to take any of these games and make them into a bigger game, you can deal with the balancing later on. You can deal with the fact that, okay, you know, we made our first level way too hard. Let's think about how to introduce these mechanics more slowly or whatever. work. Okay, I have to do it the way that I did it the first time, I think. Yeah, you can make three blocks. You can't make 4 in terms of how far you can jump. I would like the ability to look down. I don't have that currently. Okay, we're trying to get across there, and then I think we're going to get to rearrange the same pieces again, maybe. That looks like it's the starting one. Let's try that. I think having some checkpoints up here somewhere would be good. Like having a... Oh, because I'm going to do that again, aren't I? Like if we got up here and there was a checkpoint and then you had a button you could hold to go back there or something like that, I think that would be a nice way of making sure this keeps its core challenge without being too frustrating when you fall all the way back down through the level, kind of thing. Which I'm going to do every time I talk when trying to platform. Just trying to do it different ways. Cute character as well. I think the way the character sort of looks like, you know, she's like a little dryad or some sort of forest creature, so the idea that you're manipulating the puzzles because they're made of plants, that feels quite strong. This one is looks like it's more of just a traditional puzzle now, which is something I wouldn't find that interesting normally, but I think it's quite nice to do as to give you a break from the other ones. Works quite well in this context, and now be using that to do a slightly different thing. That is a fantastic way to finish a level. Really good idea. I booped off their nose and got pushed back. Oh. Okay, I'm going to have a good crack at this second level, but I'm not sure I will do it all in one go because there's too much. You just lose too much progress. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for the game in general. Like, if I was just playing this on my own, it would be fine. But as something that's going to take up a chunk of the stream, I don't want to spend too much time retrying things here. But I do really like everything this game is doing. I think it's the aesthetic of it is very, very nice. You've done quite a lot with a little here. The visual design is all very clear. Oh look, we've got a different take on the puzzle now, so let's see how this works. So I'm going to just interact with these and see what happens when I jump into them. Okay, they're just blockers, right? So I can't go into them at all. Okay. So we're trying to get up there. I mean, can I just jump on top of them? Yes, I can. Okay, I can do that. I like the fact that you've taken this sliding puzzle mechanic and you've created situations where there's more than one right answer for what you're trying to do. Particularly when you use the same puzzle from one direction and then another direction. It takes... Because that kind of sliding puzzle interface, normally it would be used to make things with one correct answer. Like you do at the end of the level with the door, which is totally fine. But that's, to me, that's just a series of, like jigsaw puzzles. It's not interesting as a video game if that was all it was. It's totally fine to have one, you know, like for finishing the level. But I really appreciate that kind of taking a type of interaction that could make a puzzle with one right answer and turning it into something that has, you know, a lot more give in it. So I think that's kind of... That's a quality that games have that sort of pure puzzles don't have, is the fact that you can do them different ways. The waterfalls are interesting because they're basically just filled blocks. But they make the puzzle slightly visually confusing, which is maybe a good thing. And I guess it's a way of varying the art for the puzzle on each level, so we're in the kind of blue level that has waterfalls now. I'm not sure. I guess you just wanted to give it some visual variety. Hello. Hello, turtle. Can I do that? Yeah. I win. I found my turtle. There he is. That's great. Oak is quite a good title as well. I mean, you'd have to check there's not already a video game called that if you wanted to do a bigger version of that, but that works for me on lots of different levels. Okay, what else have we got on the list? Okay, we're going to go for about an hour more, I think. I'm going to make a good way through this. Tabletop protector. We might get through the list, I don't know. If there's any that don't immediately grab me, I will probably only just play them for a couple of minutes to just show you what they are for everyone who's not playing every single game. There's been quite a few games this morning that I've played them longer than I have been playing games generally for the jam, and it's just because we're started to get to the ones that are you know, they have that Moorish quality, and part of it is because we're working down the list from the least rated up to the most rated. So as we get to the ones that are most rated, we're probably going to start hitting the ones that just feel a bit more like a small version of a bigger game. And okay, I'm getting these flies away from my heart. This is my heart. Putting the blobs in there. Ah, I see. Ah, wonderful. Okay, so we can squish the flies with a right click, and then we can pick up the blobs and drop them in our little pot, and that gives us some sort of level up. We put a coin in there. We're going to get a little... Not sure what that is yet. I'll find out in a minute. I love the fact that needing to defend from the flies is giving me sort of like a constant reason to sort of slow down the learning of the game, and I think that's quite neat because there's like quite a few things here where I don't know how they work yet, but I'm not being told, and the intrigue of wanting to know what the next thing is kind of pulling me through the defense bit of making sure the flies don't get to the heart. What? So these have a symbol of a little guy with a sword on, so I'm thinking these are supposed to be soldiers of... Ah, we have to crack them open! Oh my goodness. They're like little kind of gachapods. Now we've automated the fly squishing a little bit with our dudes, but you'll notice I now have less control over where the resources drop because they're going to fight them wherever. So now my picking up of the resources has got a little bit more unruly, and I bet that means that the next... I bet this is going to be like a picker-upper or something. Oh. At some point, we're going to probably automate the picking up. There's a lot of great stuff here. That's the kind of incremental type design I like. When you go through the different upgrade stages and the toys change. And the sort of nature of what you're clicking on or what you're trying to do generally just starts to change. Oh, I think you can blob the blobs together to pick them up in one go as well. That's interesting. I'm gonna lose. Is that like a regen potion? Or poison. Did I just poison myself? Not sure if that was good green or bad green. I mean, the only other place we're using green in the game is for, like, good health bars, so I thought maybe green was health. I'm gonna die. Yeah, I think that health potion is for reviving your guys. Yeah, I love the fact that you can blob the blobs together. It's good. Also, you know, devs, if you're watching this now, this is what you want to see happen in a playtest for a skill-based game you've made. You know, someone doesn't do very well because they don't understand it, and then they want to play again, and then they do better at it. right? Because that shows that your game is compelling enough that they want to play it again. And it also shows that the game is communicative enough that when someone fails, they understand what happened. There we go. I healed my little guy, got him back on his feet. So the more you protect your guy by, like, you know, getting actively involved in his combat as well, the fewer coins you're going to need to spend on revival rather than getting another helper. This is such a good set of trade-offs making up this game. I think some of the game feel we could juice a little bit, like the squishing could be a little bit, have a little bit more oomph. It's not totally devoid of oomph, but it could just do with a little bit more. Like, I think the thing is the guys that I'm hurting don't seem to respond in any way, and that makes it feel a little bit underwhelming. And I know we don't want it to be too whelming, because it's like our backup attack. We're supposed to really be focused on trying to get the dudes. But I'm just going to launch a thing at my guys. Ah! But yeah, just a little bit more of a sense of them getting whacked and rumbled when we whack and rumble them, you know? Yeah, you can carry your knights around. We got a wizard now. We can unlock a wizard on this level. I think it's a wizard. Someone with a big curly thing. Bring over here. Also pick my knights up to stop them getting stomped, and then they've got a little bit of a grace period so I can heal them. No, you stay away. Let's get you... Oh, we've got a bomb that time. Okay, so now we don't have a healing on this level. We've got a bomb instead. Although maybe the other guy isn't... maybe the other guy is a healer rather than a... looks like a wizard, but maybe it's a healer. Let's get him. Who's this? Are you going to heal people? Is that what you do? Oof. It's so hard. This is cool. I'm so glad that you chose to make this checkpointed. Because yes, maybe it is too hard, and maybe it's balanced to be a little bit too hard, but the choice to make it checkpointed is much better. And I know if this was a full game, we'd be like, well, you've just made it so that nothing I did in the previous levels has any follow-on. That doesn't matter. But this stage of just like working out, is this a cool idea? Do people like it? This is the real kind of quality of doing sort of RTS micro here, I think. Forcing me to learn how the bombs work now. We had one before just by chance come out of that item, which I think is the item one with the question mark on is random. That's why it's got a question mark on it. I'm going to let them kill me and retry this. It is too hard, but we're not losing. We're just going back to the checkpoint each time, so it doesn't feel like the end of the world. I've got melee now, which can like attack a bunch of things at once because it passes through them. Okay, that's cool. They go out when you pick them up. I think we're gonna need a heal. The way that the you know, the costs of the different things you can get modulates makes the game really quite interesting, I think. You know, the fact that your heal is never getting more expensive, but your character upgrades are. Oh no, my heal is getting more expensive, but the other one does increase. It would be good if one of the drops we could get from the random thing would occasionally be something that like levels up your fist for the rest of the level, you know? Okay, we're going to try and spare some bombs. I think that's the strategy here. Get as many of them as we can with the first bomb. Again, see how the game is allowing me to have different approaches, right? I was able to say, oh, this time I'm going to try and do this. That might seem really obvious, but games that have any kind of element of strategy in need to have that kind of quality to them. Like, can the player go, this time I'm going to try and do this? Because I see a lot of games where people have just slapped the strategy tag on because of the way that the interactions in the game work or the features they've put into the game, and it's like, well, it must be a strategy game because you deploy these types of units and blah blah blah, and it's like, well, the strategy element comes out of, you know, after the player fails, can they say, I am going to try and do this other way, and then, you know, have the tools to do that. Because this is a very simple sort of casual looking game, but the amount of thinking that you need to do to get good at it is, there's quite a lot of depth here. Hopefully this is going to give me a health. Yes, okay. Yeah, I think it's actually the economic balancing of this that is the thing that's making it overly difficult at the moment. There's lots of times when I can sort of see what I need to do, but I just can't afford it. Sort of trade-off between getting the permanent boost of having another unit and getting the temporary fix of healing or whatever is really, really strong. Wasted my bomb. Uh-oh. Right, and we do want to get a priest, I guess they are, because that gives us recurrent healing rather than one-shot potions. Don't know if they also deal damage. I haven't played with them for long enough to know how they work compared to the other guys. Seem to not be doing anything. I saw them do a little green flash before, so I think they do healing, but maybe they don't do revival. It's great. Backup potion now. Right. Now we're really cooking with potions. Oh. That was... I really like the fact that if you do mislight a bomb, you can cancel it by picking it up, which I didn't manage to do that time, because I slammed it instead. So it looks like you can actually hurry up detonating a bomb by slamming it twice. And you can also, if you accidentally light a bomb or you don't need it anymore, you can pick it up to cancel it. So there's been a lot of thought gone into that, making that interaction have lots of different permutations. So each level, starting you with a different loadout of machines, different starting resources, all of that kind of stuff. This is all doing a pretty good job as well of just like, again, providing proof of concept by being like, here's all the things you can do with this set of mechanics. Right? Longer commercial game, you might have to stretch all of this out, make it take longer to accumulate, all of that kind of stuff. But the way that this project has been presented here is like, it's really showing that this idea has legs and you can get quite a lot out of it. It wouldn't take you long to make dozens or hundreds of levels for this and make it really feel like quite good value for money if it was going to be a full game. So I think the way that the horned creatures work is they don't attack your units and they just go for the base. I think they have... I haven't quite seen it yet, but I think they must have some sort of distinct behavior because they're very visually different. So I feel like based on everything else I've seen in this game, they're going to do something different. Yeah, the priest is quite weak, doesn't have like any sort of attack. I think it would make sense if it sort of alternated between doing some sort of attack and healing, and it probably does need to have a revive as well. I think if you want to keep them so that they feel kind of pure and have their own identity and they can't also deal damage, then maybe they could slow enemies down occasionally or something like that, so they have like a debuff. And that still fits like the idea of what a priest does, but makes them feel like a pacifist as well, you know? Okay, we go for the melee unit first. This level is basically all about not letting anyone fall down, because your only healing is from priests and they can't heal people that are completely downed. Right, I'm going to move on from this. I really like this, but I could get stuck playing this for a long time otherwise. That's great. Tabletop Protector. That scores very highly on everything for me. I can't really fault it. It's just a little bit too difficult at the moment. Okay. Elemidas. This looks interesting. We are doing elemental stuff with physicsy, puzzle bobbly type interactions. So, okay, we've got some money here, and we can put it over here. And that happens by just clicking on one of these, I guess. So I'm going to do the cheapest thing first. I'll drop these yellow things in. Oh, lovely. Okay, so I think we're actually doing match 3 or 4 as our scoring mechanic. But our physical placing mechanic to trigger that is a little bit kind of fuzzy and pachinko-y because we're using physics, right? So if I drop this down... Oh, no, okay. So we're building up this tree of how things interact to make other things. Okay, that's very cool. We're trying to learn the qualities of all these ingredients by putting things together. Okay, so the basic steps here are pretty much based on color theory. So blue and yellow makes purple, yellow and red makes orange. Put the orange and the purple together and you get the brown one. Yeah, says Fatus, maybe I said... yeah, melee is close range. I might have said the opposite thing while I was playing because my brain is tired. Right, green mixed with yellow to make a yucky. So we don't want to mix green with yellow. So green looks like it can only mix with blue, and red can only mix with yellow because this doesn't wrap around. So if I were to put green and blue together, does that make a new thing? Yeah, so that makes this sort of turquoisey color. Okay. So green is actually one of our primaries in terms of the elements. You can see they've got these kind of like alchemical symbols here. And then our secondaries are orange, purple and turquoise, which still sort of makes sense from a color theory point of view, even though green is really a secondary color. But in terms of like the mnemonics of how you remember how these things fit together in the game, it sort of is reasonably easy to make sense of. So what we really need now is a turquoise and a purple to touch each other. So we need to get a turquoise over here or a purple over here. So I'm going to get this one next because that allows us to put greens and blues over here, and we can make a turquoise that will touch the purple. Ah! It's not quite close enough. I'm going to do the same thing and try and get it in between them. This is a really good use of all of the different parts of this game. Okay, so we made this grey thing out of the green and the purple, and then we made gold. Do we just keep going? We're trying to get as many of these as possible. Okay, so the orange needs a purple to go into a brown. So we're trying to make purples and turquoises together, or purples and oranges together. Okay, that bellows, like, shuffles everything that's in there. We've also got this one that's got, like, a black symbol on, so what does that do? The moon turned the red into something lit up. We don't know what that means yet. Very, very cool take on this theme, generally. Okay, let's put that on the gold and see what happens. Okay, so the moon symbol only interacts with the base ingredients. But we don't really know what they do yet. So if I put that... No, that doesn't. Yellow can interact with red to make orange, but that's not doing anything. Maybe it locks them. Maybe that's what it is. Because the yellow and the red no longer interact if I've tagged that red that way. And yellow can go with blue or red. Okay, so we'll do some more blues over here because we want to make some purples. And that purple and that orange went together to make that brown. Okay. Now we need to put purples in the middle really to make the thing work. So I just keep plopping stuff until I've got the things in the right place, I guess. Oh, red and blue. Oh, red and blue doesn't make purple. Yellow and blue makes purple. Okay, that's where I was getting confused, because everything else sort of makes general sense. I would just swap these on this tree, because everything else makes sense in terms of how the colours mix, really. Okay, so we're doing yellow and blue to get purple. That's completely thrown me off now. Okay. Now I've run out of money, which I think is game over, as far as I can tell. And then that's how much we ended up with. That's our score, basically. That's how many coins are in the pot at the end. So if you can get this pot full up of coins, then you know you've got a high score kind of thing. Or it changes each time. That's why it's not color coded in a sort of in a way that I would think is kind of rational, because it changes. So oh no, hang on, yellow and blue making no, that's the same as each time. I thought it was going to like randomize each time we played the game. I was like, what? I lied. I'm sorry. It's the same. So red and yellow do go together. The ones that get turned into this like brown color are when these colors, these base elements don't mix at all. So if you put a blue and a red together, you'll get one of these null elements. If you put a red and a green together, you get one of these null elements. So yeah, I think the only thing I would change about this game is I would swap the yellow and the red on this little panel at the bottom. Because red and blue should make purple. Although then you've got blue and... Yeah, okay. That's the thing that's confusing, is you've got like about 60% of the time, the way the colors go together is like matching with how mixing paints work. And then there are situations where it doesn't work that way. So I think you might have to make it so that it never works that way. Otherwise, it kind of like... It's one of those things... In languages, we would call that a false friend, right? A word that sounds like it's telling you what it means and it actually means a completely different thing. And that's kind of happening a little bit with the color language here. Yeah. I don't have enough money for that. Okay, I can only do a blue one. So blue can go with green or yellow. And I don't have either. That's it. It's pretty great. Feels pretty good. What are we noticing? I'm getting better at it each time. What does that mean? It means the game is good. Why does it mean the game is good? It means the game contains all of the tools that the player needs in order to like learn how to do it and get better at it. Yeah, mixing paint is different from mixing light colors. Mixing paint is more visual. If you take yellow and red, orange is in the middle of those in terms of our perception. Purple is in the middle of blue and red. Right? If you were to take paint and gradually mix the colors, you can see how one visually slides into the other, whereas the way that light colors mix, you have to learn it by rote, because the relationship between the colors doesn't actually match up with our perception. You know, adding green to red, in terms of like two things you can see, you would never get that if you put those together, it becomes yellow. You have to learn that relationship by studying physics, whereas the relationships between color and painting, it's very much like if you faded one color to the other in like a visual swoop, you could see how one is closer, you know, like how orange is closer to red and yellow than it is to purple, because you can fade them together in a wheel. The colors of light in physics don't really work that way because they don't match up with how we perceive color. So that one, this game scores very, very highly for me. What was it called? Elemidas. This one scores very, very highly for me for everything. I would say the way that it uses or doesn't use color consistently feels like it makes it slightly less intuitive. And I think that might be forgivable if it changed each time, right? So if the game was actually that little tree that you're uncovering as you go is randomized every run, so the colors sometimes relate to what you expect them to, and sometimes they don't. That would probably be better, because otherwise I think you need to make them all not mixed together in the way that people would expect. Otherwise it feels like it's giving people a false clue, which was fine once I learnt it, but it sort of made it a little bit unintuitive. Okay. What's this telling me to press? Is that a mouse button? Ah, I see. Is there a timer I'm waiting to count down here? Or is it that it just doesn't do anything unless I do it on the character? Okay. Little bit confusing in terms of how these arrows are being used to convey information or not. So if I click and drag, and if I'm not touching the character, it doesn't do anything, and if I'm touching the character, it... Ah, I see. It's a programming game. Okay, so you can do that. You can do that and like pre-create the arrows, and then you can push the character up into them and it consumes them. That's really cool. Okay, takes a little bit of messing around to get it. But once you've got it, that's a really neat idea. So we can do something like this. Then we can go whoop, and then we can go... Oh no, not quite there yet. I just wish it was a little bit more floaty. Because the idea of a sort of programming game platformer where you're trying to pre-program a step of things, it works if they stay up in the air longer, but they don't stay up in the air very long. And you end up just sort of like reactively doing that underneath them, which I don't like as much. That was funny. Feels kind of good when you get it right, but to do it properly, you sort of have to place loads and loads of arrows. Maybe this isn't how they intended you to play it. Maybe they intended you to just like do it all reactively, but I think doing it through preparation feels like a more interesting use of the mechanic. I mean, I don't think we should get into magenta because magenta is weird. I don't know if you've watched the thing about like basically things that are magenta colored are a color that our eyes can't actually see and is hallucinating. And I don't know how to explain that any better. If you Google magenta isn't real, you'll get a bunch of YouTube videos on it, and it's a super interesting topic. But magenta isn't real is the TLDR. This is a neat idea. I'm not going to play it for much longer because it's a little bit, also almost a little bit physically painful to be doing all of these directional clicks. But it's a neat idea. I could see that being a cool game if it was handled the right way. I think making the character much floatier so you don't have to do as many arrows and just making the arrows a bit more powerful depending on how long you drag them. So that's an interesting one. I think the execution needs to be a little bit wary of how much it's asking people to do those little click drags to play it. But I might have been playing it in a way that was completely unintended as well, which is very, very possible. Rampart Rush next. Yeah, we don't want to be giving people RSI with the mouse. Okay, we drag the thing to the castle and it moves. Not super responsive, eh? Okay, we're dragging archers and I'm seeing loads of UI and loads of like in-world UI things. I don't really understand why I'm dragging roads between things, but I'll do it. Okay, the wagons are going out to the towers and then they're stocking up the towers. But we can't get rid of the paths after we've drawn them, so I'm not sure what the implications of that are really. So what this feels like is you've got an artist, you've got a programmer, you both understand how your game works, and you focused on programming the features to do what you want them to do and making the individual art assets look good. But what you haven't focused on is like making it obvious how the things work. Right? We had a little tutorial that tells us how something works. But like when these wagons go into these, for example, when these wagons go into these towers, like I can tell I'm supposed to do that because I tried it and it does it. When the wagons go into the tower, what does that mean? It fills up this bar with arrows on, but they're not shooting. And then I've got this hut that also has a archer symbol on it. Drawing a line from that to somewhere else doesn't seem to do anything. So there's lots of problems here that are just like, maybe the game is a little bit too complex. Maybe you needed to make something simpler. Compare this to the game that I just played where we were squishing stuff, the Desktop Defender. That was incredibly intuitive. And one of the reasons for that was the actual actions the player could do were just, when my hand is empty and I click somewhere, I squish something. When I click on something, I can pick it up and then I can drop it. And the smash was used for smashing enemies, and it was also used for smashing open the little cases that had characters in. And the picking up was used for picking up resources, picking up coins in order to spend them, picking up characters in order to move them around. In this game, because we're like just... I don't really understand what drawing a road even means, right? So you've given me this interface so I can draw roads between things, and I can do that. And then the wagons start going, and I can see something is happening. But I don't really understand what drawing a road even means in this game. I can do a road there, right? So now I've learned that the wagons won't use a road that passes through a building, right? I don't really understand what that means. Whenever I make a new road, the wagons that are produced are then split between the two roads I've made. Okay, I've learnt something. It's not helped me advance any way towards getting any of these towers to fire. There is a tower that has an archer symbol on it, but when I connect this to any of my archer towers, it doesn't do anything. And when I click on my archer towers, I can also draw roads from them out here, but it doesn't do anything. I've got this one with a cog on, which is like maybe a symbol for upgrading, but I don't know. The actual action that the player does to interact with the game world is not intuitive, right? I can see that there are buildings. I can see I can draw roads between them. I can see that the thing that happens when I draw roads between things is wagons move around. The wagons don't seem to be doing anything. And the problem with a project like this is because it's taken me so long to get to a point where I still don't seem to be achieving the goal of the game, which is to defend the castle. I now don't know whether you've got a game that actually works and I just don't understand it, which would be a problem in its own right. But it could also be the case that you've made a very pretty, like, broken game that just doesn't do what it's supposed to do either. And I don't know either way, right? So my experience of playing this will be, well, this could be a good game where the UX is broken, or it could be a game where the game is broken and you've submitted it even though it doesn't work. And I can't tell. And I know that we've had the rule in this jam is that you're not allowed to explain the game on the page because the game needs to be self-explanatory. One of the things you have to bear in mind is lots of people, when they're going through and playing lots of games quickly, or whether it's rating them for a jam or just testing out demos and stuff, if the game is not self-explanatory, a lot of them aren't going to go and read your explanation on the page or in your Steam synopsis or wherever you've put that explanation, even if you've done it. So one of the reasons why I didn't want people to explain the game on the page is if the game is not self-explanatory in the gameplay, a lot of people won't go outside of the game to see how it's described there, because this kind of comes across as a broken game now. And maybe it's not. Maybe there is a way I can actually play this and win it. But the fundamental thing I'm doing of like clicking and dragging is not getting me anywhere. It's not the space between learning how I interact with the game with the mouse and seeing the impact I'm having in terms of defending the base is just, well, it's so big that it was never closed in the time that I just interacted with that. So it's not intuitive or self-explanatory. I like the art. A lot of it doesn't feel good to interact with, and I think a lot of the time this happens when you've got couplings of a programmer and an artist, and the programmer now thinks that the way that the game looks is entirely down to the artist, when actually there's loads of spaces in the game that need programmatic animation, right? So maybe my 2D artist is giving me all these beautiful art assets, and that's great, but that still means that, like, when I build something, it should go and appear properly, and not just like go on the screen like a sticker book. I've seen a couple of entries like this where it feels like the programmer thinks that the 3D artist or the 2D artist they're working with, everything about how the game looks is now that person's responsibility. And there's this whole world of overlap of what you would call technical art in a game, I guess, or game field programming, which is like, when I click on something, how does it visually change to show that it's selected? When I build something, how do we make it appear in a way that doesn't make it just look like it just suddenly flashed into existence and is actually like indicating, hey, you did something good here or you did something bad here? All of that kind of feedback. There's none of that in that project at all. And yeah, just a little bit impenetrable in terms of being able to learn what I'm supposed to be able to do, up to the point where it makes it feel like the game is maybe broken. And maybe it's not, but when it's so unresponsive like that, it kind of doesn't inspire confidence that the game is even actually working. Okay, let's check out button box. I think we're going to press a button. I think there's going to be a box. So I am going to go back through and check for things like people putting buttons in description when they weren't supposed to, and I will do some disqualification before the end of the thing, because that was very clear in the rules that you're not allowed to do that. So this is your chance now. If you're watching this video and you've got and you've put the buttons in the description of the game, they shouldn't be there. That was a really clear thing in the rules, so I'm going to go through and check that later. Batteries go in the radio. Oranges go in the invisible juice machine. So devs of the last game, you might look at this and think, oh, this looks a little bit childish. But the devs here are displaying all the skills that I think you need to learn before you go on to make your epic defending the castle game. Which is, every time there is an interaction I can do, the game lets me know. So for a moment, I'm not clicking, right? I'm just highlighting stuff. The game is letting me know there is a potential interaction there. Things are going, boop. Hey, you can interact with this. Doesn't have to be that way. It could be a highlight, could be whatever. But the game is showing me what parts of the game are relevant, what parts of the game I can interact with. And then when I click on things, there's additional feedback to show me that the thing I clicked on did something, right? These are the skills that you should be mastering before trying to make something a little bit heavier and more like strategic or tactical or whatever. Because the amount of games that I see, not in this jam, I think this jam's been pretty good for it because of the rules that we set up. But the amount of games I see where someone's trying to make something that is like a deep type of game, and they haven't really got to the point yet where they're doing all of these little UX feedbacky things that you need to do. Obviously, this is a kind of childlike looking, casual, cozy looking game, and that means that the way that these things are done is quite cartoonish and silly and over the top. I'm not necessarily saying every game needs squash and squeeze and these little white lines coming out and stars coming out, but it usually does need something to indicate when things happening on the screen are important, or to show the player where like the interactions are that they can do. That's going to turn juice into a guy. Let's make a guy out of some juice. It's time. It's also very funny that at the start of this jam, someone was complaining that the rules against numbers meant they couldn't do an incremental. And we've had some really great incrementals. Yeah, look, Juice Guy, he's here. He's gonna stack the oranges up on his head. There are so many ways of representing an amount of stuff in a game that you do not necessarily need numbers to do an incremental game. This is... there are certain things in an incremental game you can't do if you don't have numbers, like, you know, like logarithmic growth of numbers where you start off with one of something and you end up with more than 1 billion, that kind of stuff. But, I mean, you can still do that to a degree because the underlying value of things can go up on a logarithmic scale. You know, you can have one piece of wood that is worth... or you can have 100 pieces of wood being worth 1 piece of gold, and 1,000 pieces of gold being worth a diamond, and all of that, so that in the end, like a diamond is actually worth 100,000 pieces of wood. That's still the same thing. It's just you're not actually displaying it as a number. It's just implied by the variables of the game and like how it feels to level up those things or whatever. Ah, we've got a gambling machine that we need to put money into now. Is that actually going to be random, the outcome? It kind of suggests that it is because they've made it a little casino machine. I greatly enjoy the guy. Yeah, I think the kind of programmatic animation juice thing is a very common thing we see a lot, and I think a lot of the time it just comes down to programmers like fundamentally not appreciating that how the game looks and feels is part of their job. And you can make the simplest, like, you can make a game with no sort of characters running around being animated and stuff and still bring it to life visually through stuff you do in the code. And I think it takes some people a very long time to get past the point of thinking, well, that's not my job because I'm the guy that just makes the game work. And it's like, yeah, but the game is also the feedback is the game, you know? Technical art is one of my favorite things. Like, doing squishy things with code, it's great. Making math you can feel. I think enjoying doing that is a sort of prerequisite for being a good games programmer, or at least a good gameplay programmer, which is different from doing like tools programming or like deep systemic stuff or whatever. Let's build this machine. Well, we know whose game this is because there's a little astronaut down here who I recognize. Oh. Okay, in you go. Oh my goodness. Sorry guys. I'm really sorry. But there's more of you where that came from, I guess. Is this going to keep giving us random stuff each time? Oh, buddy. You wanna... He wants cubes of stuff. Okay, but we need to make... He'll only eat it if it's in lovely cubes. That's the problem. Right, we need more guys. That's what we need. I don't know how you make the fish or the fruit into cubes. That's the problem I'm having at the moment. Can we try the other fruits in the blender? Possibly, yeah. Although... Yeah, no, nothing will take anything that it doesn't suggest it will from the thingy. Oh, hang on. Make a meat cube. Maybe there's a way to turn... Nope, that's not how that works either. Huh. Okay. Oh, we're having such a normal time in this game. This guy's gonna go in the normal blender and become the juice, and yeah, there we go. Here you go, buddy. Here's all the stuff you want. Here's your dude cubes and your dude juice. The way that the music changed when the game got dark, but it also sort of, it still fits like the quirky art style, but it sort of gets a little bit more menacing and breakbeaty when we get to that end bit. Fantastic. That's insane in the best way possible. I love it. Right, we're gonna have time for... I love the fact that there was like a little bit of a puzzle that just sort of unlocked as the game got on then. 2 more now, and well, no, hang on. How long have I got? Sorry, I just need to check when my call is after this. Okay, we've got half an hour left. Let's just see how many we can get through in that time. I think I saw someone working on this one. Okay. We've got ingredient trays. And this person is like, I want onions. I want that. I want carrots. And you go, there you go. This person wants carrots. They want that. They want that. And this person, they want whatever. What is happening? This person wants any of those things, but you have to sort of memorize the different things you saw. I'm not sure what that means. Is that it? Am I supposed to just... I guess I don't know what they're going to want before I buy the stuff, which might be a problem. Okay, we've got 2 easy customers and a difficult one. I guess is what that means. Eggies and onions. Sorry, we don't have what you want. Go away. Definitely feels like you can get, like, become a little bit punished over time by not doing well in this game. Because you can... If you've got 5 coins, you can afford one of everything. But then if you randomly get a requirement for lots of the same thing, you're going to run out of it. And then you're going to get less coins. And then you're going to not be able to do as well in the next level. So it's going to kind of compound. So it doesn't really matter for a jam game, but I'm just saying it's like it's a problem with the game design which you would need to work out a way of dealing with over time if it was going to be a bigger game. So, or make them like partially happy with their meal if it's got some of the stuff they want in or whatever. We've just been playing Omelette You Cook, and that kind of lets you see your customers ahead of time. So if there's a customer coming that won't eat meat, at the stage when you're picking your ingredients, you can go, okay, I need to pick more vegetables this time, because if I just draw meat on that round when I'm feeding the vegetarian, I'm kind of screwed. So that's one way of dealing with it, is giving you kind of pre-knowledge of who's coming and what they want. But yeah, it's very quick to kind of get screwed in this. So I think that's like the main problem you're going to have with that design that you would need to resolve. But it is very intuitive and self-explanatory, so I think it does well for that. At the moment, the core design has that problem with it, so it's not necessarily one where I'd go, yeah, make this into a full game, because you would have to resolve that problem of like double punishing players that don't have the right stuff, because you don't have the right stuff, you don't serve the customers, you don't get the coin, you can even your ability to afford the right stuff is even worse. That might be realistic. It doesn't make for the game being fun. But I liked the music. I liked the atmosphere, and yeah, it just felt a little bit too based on luck, really, and luck that lasts for too long. You know, because luck that's based on just sitting there rolling a dice very quickly or pulling a machine lots of times. Okay, luck that kind of follows through and has a long tail of consequences that you have no control over. Not so great, right? Brain rot golf. Okay, we're doing some golf with some brain rot. Although that's a hockey puck, surely. Okay. Got no sound? No sound? No sound. This feels like, I mean, this main swinging mechanic feels like it could be kind of good. But there's no sound and I don't know what I'm hitting and I can't get past this point. So I'm going to just move on from that one. Let's get through as many as we can in the end. If there's anything like that where it just doesn't make immediate sense, I'm just going to skip it. Brick. Wordless puzzle platformer. Okay. Oh, that's neat. So S is to sort of turn yourself into a block, and that's a really cool concept. I like that. I went too high. I blocked too close to the sun. This is a really good idea. I don't know what the different permutations of this puzzle would be, because they kind of feel like they're all going to be the same thing at the moment, but you could probably do more stuff with this. I imagine one of them would be like leaving yourself on top of a button, right? Which is just a classic. It's a classic puzzle in like co-op stuff and in anything where you switch between characters. So that kind of feels like one of the things you could do with this. This is quite tedious though. I mean, it's a cool idea, but making people do a whole screen of it like that is... I don't know, slightly trollish. That might be just more of a taste thing on my side, but I don't like this level design. Checkpoint! Yay! Okay, I see what we're doing here. Now this is where it's going to get interesting. You have to sort of jump as high as you can and then let yourself fall a bit so that your new block is not going to be too high for you to get onto the next time you make that jump. And now I've blocked the jump to the previous one. Can you try and build a box around your spawn point? I totally can. This reminds me of, what's that UFO 51 where you keep sort of coming back as different characters and the ones that died are still in the level? I can't remember what it's called. There's like two, there's a sequel on the two UFO 50 games that are sort of in the same series of UFO 50 games. Jump's not quite high enough. Okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. This is a good idea. I think the levels are a little bit trollish too early. Okay, yeah, you can't... When it's red like that, you can't do the ability, so you can't block yourself in, but you can if you make it like this, I guess. Excellent. Safe at last. Mortolia is... Yeah, that's the one. That's fun. I like that idea. I think slightly making the level design a little bit more towards the side of giving people the satisfaction of completing it nice and quick early on would be good. Those level designs were cool, but I think you have to be quite invested in the game to put yourself through that level of difficulty, and it didn't kind of ramp up in a way that allowed me to get to that stage. The actual kind of... I found the sound effect when you lock the block in was quite irritating, and it made me not really want to do that big under and over level, even though the level was a cool idea. I think the sound effect and the zooming around of the camera both made it feel a little bit grating, and they weren't like great game feel choices, and particularly when you're doing it over and over again, I think you've got to be really conscious of those things. Definitely intuitive and self-explanatory. I would rate the visuals of that much higher than the sound. I found the sound effects quite grating and the music quite annoying as well. And the camera movement. It did feel like a good proof of concept for a larger game, though. I'll definitely give that one that. So yeah, part of the purpose of doing these streams as well is just to try and make sure that people who see games that they like the look of go and give them a try. because there will be folks in the chat now or watching this on the VOD who took part, who have maybe played 4 or 5 games, and they'll see some other games they like and they'll go and give them a try based on this. So I know I'm going to rush through these last few because I want to make sure we've done them all by tomorrow. But yeah, it's not necessarily about how much screen time people get on the stream. It's just making sure everyone gets a chance to see every game, and then they can go and play the ones that they like the look of based on that. And if you're just tuning in, the voting is only open to the people who took part in the jam, but you can go and play whatever you want to play and leave comments on it. Smash the wolf. What is happening? This is like farm WarioWare or something. Classic, having to put the sheep in a hole, just like on a real farm. Oh, they're attached, so you have to put them in a hole like that that's got like the right set of colours. This is fun, Black Rat. One thing I would say is when you're trying to put 2 art styles together that don't really go, the quickest shortcut to making them look a little bit better together is to make sure that they both use the same color palette and the same line weights. So when you've got these illustrated bits in here that seem like they're from a different artist, just making sure that you're using the colors from one to make the other bits of art will make everything look way more like the same game. This is one of those things where it's like the main activity we're doing is not a challenge, but you've made so much like there's so much going on at once that it does become a challenge, which is kind of fun. Very good wolf sound effect there as well. The blue and grey colours are a little bit close together. Do not eat my sheep! The wolf is the best sound effect. It gives you a full sense of security because the wolf doesn't sound that hungry. It sounds kind of friendly. So out of when we do a CollabJam next year, if we do one, out of all of the stuff that I've seen so far, I think one of the things that's maybe sticking out to me as a way of getting people to make better games during a jam is maybe making one where you can only use the mouse. Because it kind of forces you to have fewer things the player can do, but more implications of like how the mechanics interact when you put them together. there's a little bit of a challenge to visually judging the sheep and like what colors they're made up of. That is quite deceptively difficult in terms of how it looks versus what's happening when you're doing it, especially when these wolves get involved. Please stop running away from me into the wolf. Don't do that. This is quite upsetting to lose that. Please stop eating my sheep. Yeah, so the sockets don't care about what order the colors are in, which confused me a little bit at first, but not for long. We're gonna do better this level. Do not eat that sheep. Right. Sheer Madness, great title. I love a pun title. Feels quite responsive. One thing that felt quite unforgiving is when you pick the sheep up and you're moving them around and you bump into the fences, it felt like the kind of detection on that was a little bit too broad. Like, I think you really want to like whack them right against the fence to have that do what it did. But yeah, that was I particularly like the homemade sounds on that one. I thought that was quite funny. And that felt like it was a set of skills that you did have to learn and you got better at over time, which is something I'm always looking for. Because it's often what makes a game a game. And that's not to say story games and puzzles are not games, but it's often what people are looking for and judging games by when they play them. Am I a frog with a sword? It's a dream come true. We've got a space bar. And if I hold it for a long time, I pounce. This is great. I want more. Someone was commenting the other day that we need more pouncing based games, and I think it's very good for... I mean, I would kind of want that guiding line that goes whoop and gradually draws before you jump for that to be really learnable, but it's fine. Okay, so you have to both hold the space bar and hold the mouse far away to go further. And then we've got a swipe with our left click, which is very slow and delayed, and a tongue attack of some sort. We can't go through there, we've got to go this way round. Is that a switch? We use the tongue for the switches. I think this would really need a line to show you where your jump arc is going to go. I like it. I like the general vibes of this. I quite like the art. The character design is kind of cool in its own right. Maybe I need to go back that way. I don't know. But yeah, I think the UX of the actual jumping is not as good as it could be. It's a good use of a frog character, but we really need like an aiming line, and I think when we're charging up the jump, the frog should like go down on its haunches so it looks like it's charging it up. That's a really important game state to convey, because if you're watching this now, the moment where I'm charging up a jump, you can't really see what I'm doing. You can't see the intentionality of what the player is doing. And I always think, when you're thinking about what animations your character needs, in a 2D game in particular, start with just poses. So, you know, jumping and falling, for example, can just be like one single pose like they've got there, where his arm's up in the air. So the classic Mega Man way of doing it. That's fine, but it sort of conveys the state that the character is in, and I feel like charging the jump is a state that we're kind of missing out on. That would add quite a lot as well, actually, because then when you launch into the jump, it would feel like a build-up and a release. The jump puzzles are just a little bit too difficult without being able to see where you're going to go before you let go of the thing. And it just seems like the upper limit for like how powerful my jump can be feels kind of like it varies a little bit more than I'd expect it to. Maybe it's because I'm not paying attention to how far away I'm putting the mouse. I kind of like the idea of this, the kind of like doomy guitar and the slightly dark aesthetics of this, and then it being a kind of Redwall type character that's an anthropomorphic character. I quite like all of those things together. It's like sort of slightly, it's got that kind of like dark retro fantasy dungeon synth kind of vibes, but with the sort of Redwall, like anthro furries with swords thing. And I think those things go together quite well. So I like this from a creative direction perspective, but the actual feel of the mechanics is not great and would need a bit of a bit more thought and making sure that it's all kind of communicated well. So getting that crouch in before the jump, maybe giving us a guiding line for the jump. If you feel like the guiding line is too much and you don't want to give that much help, you could have it as a training thing for a while and then take it away. Or you could even have it as a power-up. You know, that would give an incentive for the player to find certain places in the level where they can pick up that thing that gives them the guiding line. But it does feel like it needs it for this version of the game to feel fun to play, because I don't feel like as I do the jump, I don't feel like I'm learning how to get better at it. So this one scores quite highly for atmosphere, but it feels a bit unresponsive. Yeah, a bit of ledge mounting. So basically, when the character hits an edge and the bottom of the character's feet is below the edge, you sort of detect it and let them land on the ledge anyway. All of that kind of stuff. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that your code and your physics don't match up with the player's mental model, and you're going to have edge cases where you need to force it to, because the player cares about how much the game matches up with their mental model. The player doesn't care about adapting their mental model to what your underlying code is doing if your underlying code doesn't feel like it's a kind of fair approximation of what should happen in this cartoon world. And the classic one is just like, yeah, you jump onto a ledge and there's no... I can't remember what it's called. It's basically like you're like 1 pixel below the ledge and you hit it. It's like your character is stubbing their toe on the ledge. And it's like, okay, well, in the kindest version of this world, the character would just land on the ledge. But even if we're going for like brutally horrible realism, in that situation, the character would hit the ledge, fall forward and smash their face, right? So either way, it feels bad to treat the entire character as one physical block, and if one bit is below the ledge, to then have them hit the ledge and slide down. It feels bad in both situations, whether we want the game to be like brutally hardcore, realistic, difficult, or if we want it to be forgiving. We still need to handle that situation in one way or the other, otherwise it kind of just feels stupid, because we're treating the character as if they're a big block of wood with no sort of intentionality or ability to grab the edge or anything like that. WSE. Ah, okay. We're doing up and down, and then that feels very unintuitive for a game that is using W and S as if we're doing WASD and then not using D as the forward, but that's fine. Let's just see what we're doing here. I have to put both hands on it, otherwise I'm going to forget that it's E and not D to go right. Toe Stub Face Smash is the name of my grindcore band. I don't know what that means. I'll put some candies and some tape. I think you just sort of get to visually upgrade your pinata that you're riding between. Or we're going off the track. What happened there? Every time... Oh, if you hit it too many times, it gets hurt and stops. I think that's... I like all of this aesthetically. It all feels very coherent together. Obviously, we got a little bit of jank where the character goes on the wrong side of the fence when they're on that lane, which feels like maybe that should have been fixed before the end. We've got some sort of stamina thing where if we whack the piñata too many times, it gets hurt, which is one of those things that it's like after it happens, you understand it and you're like, okay, I see what happened there. But it doesn't feel like it's approaching the first time you experience it, you know? So again, thinking about like, and this is like a helpful way for programmers to think about it, I guess. It's like thinking about like the state machine or the variables that are in the game and what does the player need to be aware of, right? And I once heard someone that designs video game UI say, oh, my job is to like pump the relevant variables up from the code of the game to the player's conscious, right? And you do that with all the parts of the art in your game as well. So an example here is there is a range where the piñata is tired, and if you hit it one more time, it's going to stop, and it's going to like flash for a little while and slow you down. So I just want to check that one more time. I think it was 4 times I could hit the piñata. So what I would like to see is the last time when you're not supposed to hit the piñata anymore, we get some sort of warning. So I've hit the piñata 3 times. And now it's actually the little stickers on it that are like the life bar for the piñata, right? So I can hit it one more time and it goes away. So we do have a warning, right? I think if we had like a facial warning on the piñata for like the last one, where okay, so every time we add a sticker on it, it gets like more kind of maximum health of how many whacks it can take. And then when it's on that last whack, it will get tired. I think if there was like a little bit of an emotional tell there of like the face became sad when it's on this last one, then it would be easier to understand that mechanic. The first time it happened, I was like, what's happening here? So there is enough there for you to kind of know where that kind of invisible bar of stamina is. It's just depicted by the tape rather than like how the piñata looks, which is a little bit unintuitive, but at least it's there somewhere. I need to log off now because I have a call to get to. Thank you all for stopping in today. Please go, if you saw any games in this stream that you like the look of, please go back and find them and give them a play. Like, rate them if you think they deserve rating and you were part of the jam and you want to make sure that they do as well as you think they should. I'm going to be back tomorrow to do the same thing again. And I will go back through the VOD later on and try and put the names of the games in the right place, put timestamps on them and so on, and maybe put links if there's time. Thank you all for dropping in, and I'll see you all again soon.